This is the overview information for IT74. We're talking about the lecture and how that's going to work, what the lab part's going to look like a little bit. There'll be more on that later, but we're going to show you the equipment you'll be using and start the touch on safety. Now, the purpose of this course is for you to be exposed to the processes, the tools, materials, and manufacturing. And one of the most important processes in manufacturing is planning. And part of planning is understanding, breaking down the processes into steps. So we'll be doing a lot of that as much as we can, I hope. There'll be a bit about using resources wisely. Now understand, you're not learning a trade. This is not a high school shop, go straight to work kind of class. It's not vocational. But you need to understand how some of those trades work to be able to understand how manufacturing works. So how things are made, the processes that go into it. This is considered a 2+2 course. That means there's 2 hours of lecture and 2 hours of lab. And in theory, the first 2-hour segment of the class on Tuesdays, if it's Tuesday, Thursday class, and then from 6 to 8, if it's a night class, is supposed to be the lecture part. And that's where you would get the information, PowerPoints, videos. If you've taken 114, you know that I do a lot of videos, and I don't lecture for 2 hours, and I won't be doing that this time. On through Canvas, you'll get the links to the readings, audios, all that stuff. Now, the lab would normally have a lab notebook. In fact, you're going to have a lab notebook, but I'm going to give it to you before I make you buy it, because there's a lot of pages and stuff in there. This time it's going to be most of the drawings, and the pre and post processing of the lab work will be done via Canvas. Again, more about that later. The lecture portion all online on Canvas, and you're supposed to get stuff from this site through this lecture stuff for about 2 hours per week. The PowerPoints will typically be 30 minutes, some shorter, some longer. You need to watch the voiceover or the narrated version, and I'm going to convert them to an MP4 movie, which will make it easier for you to watch, because then you can use the bar at the bottom to back up if you miss something. But if it's only a 30-minute PowerPoint, where's the other hour and a half? Well, it's because they're videos. There's always been a part of this course. There's some professional videos and then there's some that I found on YouTube that really do explain all of this. So each unit will have about an hour, quite frankly. Maybe it's 30 to 45 minutes of video that you have to watch. So you do all that, and then there'll be some other material to bring you up to the extra time that you would need to do work in a class like this. And of course, there'll be tests. There'll be exercises that you'll have to do. And with each PowerPoint, there's going to be or each unit, there's going to be an assignment asking questions about what was on the videos that were watched, what was on the PowerPoint, kind of a check-in every week. Those weekly PDFs are going to be a critical part of your grade, as you've seen in the syllabus. Now, labs, I think I've explained how we're going to do this, but if you missed it, there are going to be 5 stations, and with each station, you'll have some lab time. You'll be doing a lot of the stuff. I think it's worked out a pretty good plan for you to come in, and you will be working individually. There'll be some other people in the lab, but they'll be working on other machines. 2 people will be working on milling machines at a time, 2 people will be working on lathes at a time, 2 people will be oxyacetylene welding at a time, 2 people will be arc welding at a time. Unfortunately, only 1 person at a time doing the sheet metal and casting. But that may not take the full 2 hours. We'll see. And I will be there to help supervise. I will be socially distancing. You will be wearing your face mask and social distancing. But there's no reason to, you can say hi to the other person. Let's not be silly. But there's going to be no reason for you to be within 6 feet of anybody else working in the lab. The way that's going to work is I've created videos for all of the exercises. And before you come in, you need to watch them and make notes, and it will show you what to do. And so when you walk in, you'll be able to come in, do the work you need to do, and ready to go. Now, to make sure that you've looked at these videos and make sure you understand them a little bit, there's going to be a prior to working form that you want to fill out, and how you envision these to be steps. The breaks in the videos aren't always the steps involved in making these parts. Instead of making it one long 40-minute video, well, nothing's that long, but instead of making one long video about doing each of these stations, I've broken them up into little bits so you can watch a little bit here, a little bit there, watch that one again. And so after you finish, there's going to be a post-work form, also another fillable PDF, and you'll describe what you made. You describe the steps in making it. And you can also, and should also, say what worked, what didn't work, where you made mistakes. We learn so much from our mistakes, and that's good. I want you, if everybody makes it perfectly, you're doing it wrong. But I will tell you this, that if you get frustrated and something didn't quite work, please don't waste material and try to remake the part. Not being perfect is okay. So, when you come in, you'll know what machine you will have signed up for, and you go to your machine and you should wipe it down. There'll be spray bottles of disinfectant and paper towels. You'll know what parts of the machine you're going to be touching. You don't need to do the big machine surfaces, but usually it's pretty obvious. For arc welding, you need to spray the inside of the welding hoods, and you will want to leave that wet while you go do the next step and then come back. When you're done, brush down the machines, brush down the work areas. If you're going to lathe, empty the lathe tray, then come back and spray and wipe down the surfaces you touched. Now, I know it sounds kind of weird to have to do this because you're going to be wearing rubber gloves the whole time. And hopefully you're wearing your mask properly that covers your mouth and nose so that you won't be transmitting any of your spittle to the machines, but it's good practice in these day and times. And then there will be this solid items like drill bits, chuck keys, small things like that. There's going to be a box in each room where you can put those types of materials. And I will either heat thermally sanitize them or chemically sanitize them. And so when you put them in that little box, I can take it from there. Now, there are going to be some items that you can't do that with, like brushes, like masks for oxyacetylene welding. Those need to be put into what you can see a plastic milk box. Put those in there. There's going to be quarantined. I'm going to take those, set them aside for the university, CSU wants it to be set aside for 7 days, but I'm told that after 3 days, this coronavirus can't live on any of these surfaces for more than 3 days. I'll go ahead and keep them for 7 days. We've got enough brushes and the like. And so it's going to be fine. Those will go into quarantine, and the next week I'll bring them back out and people will use them, but they will have been untouched for a week, so they will be self-sanitizing. Okay, let's get into some of the machinery you're going to be using. You've heard me throw these things around, and on the left is a milling machine. It's a vertical mill. Nickname is Bridgeport, and it's for making square parts out of metal. The machine in the middle is called a lathe. It's for making round parts out of metal. And more about each of these and how they work a little bit later. But those are the two basic chip removal machines. And we do stuff by hand. We do have a CNC, and you'll get to see a video on it. But our advisory board likes the fact that we have you guys learning how to use manual machines, because it's so much easier to go from there and learn the computer controlled equipment if you understand the manual stuff first. Over on the right is a vertical bandsaw. It's a metal cutting bandsaw. You will be cutting some metal with a vertical bandsaw, and also a horizontal bandsaw, which is on the left of this slide. The thing has some automated features that make it a little bit easier on the horizontal bandsaw, but when you're doing lathe parts, you'll be cutting them on the horizontal bandsaw. The thing in the middle is called a drill press. That's the name of that machine, drill press. Not the spinny thing that puts holes in stuff. Actually, if you had more than one student write that on their final exam. Come on, guys, it's a drill press. Learn these names of these machines. On the right is a bench grinder. You may or may not use one of those this time out. But that's for sharpening certain tools. It's for grinding off pieces of metal. Excuse me, not just pieces of metal, steel. Do not use aluminum on a bench grinder. Do not use brass on a bench grinder. It clogs up the space between the grit, and then it expands at a different rate and can shatter the grinding wheel. Steel only. Over on the left is an iron worker. It's made for cutting off strips of steel to be welded, in our case, and that will be one of the first machines you will do. And this is an example of why you're going to see that these labs are staggered, and that is that the first person doing gas welding would come in at 10:15 or 2:15 or whatever time we determined to be, and or come in at 10. And the next person would come in at 10:15, and the next person would come in for arc welding at 10:30. The next one would start their work at 10:45. That's because it'll take about 15 minutes for you to cut your pieces on the iron worker. Now, it's foot controlled, so kind of not a non-starter in terms of sanitation. There's only one button you got to push and go wipe it off when you're done. But you can be wearing leather gloves. So, it's staggered so that when somebody comes in, the first person comes in and can do that. Same thing with the machine shop, that staggering a little bit so that you will be off time with the other person doing this similar machine. The machine in the middle is called a chop saw. It's a big metal grinding wheel, thin grinding wheel there in the middle. You will cut some pieces with that. The machine on the right is a shear. It's for cutting sheet metal. You'll be using one of those. When I talk about the oxyacetylene and stick welding, this is what I'm talking about. You'll have with the gas tanks, although our gas tanks are out on a deck behind the shop, but so we bring it in on a manifold, but you use acetylene with oxygen to create a flame hot enough to melt metal. Stick welding is you use a an electric rod and run electricity through it, and it has special kinds of stuff around the outside, and it creates what's called a slag, and a lot more about that as we go forward. You notice that you can very well see that the arc welder is wearing leather gloves, and I think they tried to draw gloves on the oxyacetylene welder. You're going to receive free of charge, paid for out of your lab fees, a pair of leather work gloves. They're not welding gloves like you see on the stick welding, but they're good enough to do the job that you need to do. And I'll mention now that you need to wear long sleeve shirts the day you do welding. Just an old beat up shirt that you don't care if it gets a burn hole in it. Probably won't, but if it does, not a dress shirt. Okay, I've mentioned a lab notebook. You're going to have a lab notebook, and it's going to have drawings. And I'm not going to try to explain the drawings here. I've got another place where I'll do that. But you will notice that they all have, they're going to have a title. And they're going to tell you what the material is supposed to be. And if it was something different, it would say make 1, 2, whatever. All these drawings are not to scale. And sometimes I change some dimensions, but I don't change the drawing. And more about that when we go into a little bit more into the class. So you can have a drawing, and also in part of that manual is going to be instructions on how to do the labs. This is not what it's going to look like. It's what it looked like in the past. Adopted a little bit, but this expected plan of operation, that part over on the left, is going to look, that's just that part itself is going to be what your prior to coming in to do lab work will look a little bit like. What are the steps you think you're going to make? Maybe what are the machinery you're going to use? Some things like that, just to show that you have looked at the videos on the particular station, and that you have given some thought to how this whole process is going to lay out. Some of them are going to be very short. Some of them are going to be very long. And that's okay. You know, they don't all have 7 steps. Some of them only have 3. Some of them have 12. You'll figure it out that you can just keep adding to it. You can say there's going to be fillable PDFs, and so they'll look something like this, but a little different. The part on the right is going to be a little bit more like what the post lab station write-up is going to be. You list, here's the stuff the equipment you used, here's the steps I actually did, and there'll be a space for you to say, here's what worked, here's what didn't. And I mentioned this making a plan. Getting a plan to go somewhere on the road is pretty easy to do if you're driving somewhere. Now you may, it's easy to plan, to tell Google, say, take me there, and it plans it out for you. But some of the stuff that you are doing are things that you've never done this. You've never run a milling machine. You've never folded sheet metal. So how do you know what the steps are going to be? We're going to watch some videos that show a progression, but it's not like actually being there. And there's a term used by the developers of new products in Silicon Valley, and they call it wayfinding, because it's not navigating. Navigating is what you do if you know where the roads are. Wayfinding is, I think I know where my destination is, but I don't know where the roads are. I don't know how to get there. I've got to figure it out by myself. And that's okay. This course is a lot about that, how to make your way up to the mountainside, up to the mountaintop, through a forest that you've never seen before. And it's okay, but you need to be able to take the experiences that you get once you finally do get to the top of that mountain, and be able to say, here's what I did, and to reflect on it and say, here were the steps I made, and here's how it could be set into a plan, so that you could write work instructions for somebody else to do that particular part. Okay, I'm going to mention a little bit about safety. I'm going to do a little bit more. It's these videos that show you how to properly operate the equipment. And inside those videos, there's mention about this for safety and that for safety. So if you watch the videos, that's your safety training. That's why I want you got to do a pre-process form. And I'll be watching from the next room. I'll be monitoring everything. And you can come up and ask me questions. But, whenever you're in the lab, you need to wear your safety glasses. Now, you're going to be assigned a locker in the machine shop. And if you want to leave your safety glasses there for when you come back next time, and you come in and somebody's working, be very careful about going to your locker quickly and getting your safety glasses. You're going to have to wear a face covering, nose and mouth. And this is nothing new to those of us in industrial technology. We're wearing safety glasses, we're dust masks. Gee whiz, what's the big deal? Well, it's a little bit bigger deal now, and people are freaking out. What the difference is that the disease that comes from this virus takes many, many different shapes and forms, and it's deadly. You cut your finger off on a bandsaw. Well, they know how to fix that. But they don't know how to fix some of the parts from this disease. So that's the scary part, and that's why you don't want to get it. So wear a face covering. It works tremendously well. A microbiologist at Fresno State did some tests, and it was just phenomenal at how useful having a face mask was over mouth and nose. And you're not so much protecting yourself with that, you're protecting other people with that. Wear closed-toed shoes. You don't want to drop a piece of metal onto your sandals and your barefoot and get it all cut up, and it's not good. And of course, no neckties, no jewelry. You'll see that I take off my key ring when I'm working. There'll be a little bit more on safety, and you'll have to pass a safety test. It's one of the reasons that we can't get going right away, is I want to actually make sure that you understand what safety is. And there's going to be videos that are going to explain the step-by-step coming in, where to do your sanitation stuff, how to do that. And then we'll be able to, once I'm satisfied everybody understands what they're supposed to do, we'll start signing up. And like I say, and in fact, we're not going to sign up for certainly next week, this first week. When it's particularly hot or particularly smoky from fires, we can't really operate. The machine shop is not air conditioned, but it's not a big deal after, into October, November, December. But it's kind of rough in August, and September's not that bad. But we need to be able to open up the windows, and if we do that, all the smoke is coming in. So it'll be a week or two before that. I will be putting up some times for people to sign up for, and it will come up sort of randomly somewhere. And you can sign up for your 2-hour session at each station all at once. You can just sign up for one, see how it goes. Sign up for other ones. And like I say, when we start this, there are going to be some labs in the mornings, like at 10 o'clock to noon, with stagger times through there. And then later, when the semester we'll get a little bit cooler weather, that time is going to shift from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2 to 4. And I'll continue to have labs from 6 to 8 every Tuesday, and possibly every Thursday, because we've got to get a lot of people through here. So you'll be able to pick some times that you want to do your stuff, and I'll have them probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of these times available, so that you can get plenty of work in. It might be Tuesday and Wednesday night, maybe not Thursday night. We'll see. And if there are any particular times that you need it. Also, you're going to be getting a questionnaire soon that will ask, say which of these kind of times are preferable for you. But beyond that, there's some other questions that go in there. Okay. Look for some more stuff coming up. And just a reminder that this is not a skills class. It's an introductory class. It's what's called a survey class. I'm not looking for perfect artifacts. I want you to learn, and you learn from mistakes. Now, if you're experiencing some of those, maybe you're a certified welder. Knock out those things and go home early. There's a little bit more to it than just welding, but you'll probably be able to figure out. In fact, the certified welders have trouble with the little project that goes along with this, which has to do with drilling and tapping holes. So you'll see, it'll be fine. And as somebody else said, if you want to do a little extra work and there's some free time and you wanted to, you know how to weld, so you do the little exercises we have, and you want to bring in something that you want to weld for home, feel free. It'll be fine. Okay, that's it.